So again, thank you everyone for joining us this morning on this, the sixth updates. This is actually the seventh year we've had campus plans. This is a significant effort on the university system's part to provide some exposure into the work that is being done on campus. So I want to talk a bit about what we're going to do today. Just to give you an idea, we're going to talk a bit about what's new in the campus plans. From this year, for those of you who have done these for the past several years, they should feel fairly familiar to you now. But there are a few things that are different this year than last year, not too much. I want to talk a bit about purpose and function, why we do this. I think that's an important element to understand that these have real value in the state and elsewhere. I also we'll go through then the basic process. This is sort of the nuts and bolts of what's in it, how you'll submit it, and also how you can get help. So as we go through, if there are questions that you have, please go ahead and put them again in the chat box. I'm not entirely sure what your interface would look like, but as messages come in, I should be able to see them. I should be able to see them. If you cannot view what's on screen, please let me know, and I will do my best to sort of sort that out. We're sort of thin on technical support with us now. But I'm going to move on. So what's new? So first off, we revised the strategy survey. Every year we come through, and for those of you who've done this for a while, the strategy survey provides an opportunity for us to sort of view into the work that's being done on campus. It's a fairly extensive survey. It's not nearly as extensive as the Mindset survey, but it does sort of look across campus, and we're still actually revising it. We're adding some questions, we're stripping out some questions, we're asking for questions with a little bit different kinds of detail. Also, what's new this year, we pushed the due date back for the campus plans. This is a constant question we get about whether we want to push it back after census date, whether we can push it back even further. One of the obligations we have is we want to make sure this gets done at a time when you're thinking about the work that's been done in the 2018-2019 school year, so the school year that's just wrapping up. And as we push these due dates later, I've discovered that information from the current year gets embedded. And that makes perfect sense from a reporting standpoint, but it does make it messy in terms of what we're trying to accomplish with the campus plans. We have aligned the Momentum Year update, so this should come as good news to many of y'all. We will ask for an update on your Momentum Year work. This Momentum Year update will align with whatever reporting is being asked for during the budgetary process. Our deadline comes in a little bit before the budgetary deadline comes in, but these should be essentially the same prompt. Which means that you can use the same material twice, and that's an intentional design feature of this. We are trying to make sure that whatever reporting we are asking for, we don't find somebody else in the building asking for similar but not identical reporting. And so that's the structure of that. And the last thing is, in years past, we've asked you to identify people who are the lead on any individual activity. And this year we're asking, instead of to align that with activities, we're just really looking for student success teams. Tell us who all is on there. We'll get to that in a bit, but this is a fairly transparent process. For me, I will be fairly straightforward about why I'm doing that later, but it is largely because we need to be able to contact people who are engaged in this work. So, why do we do this? I think it's important to note that for the system office, these reports truly represent our window into your work. I use these reports, quite frankly, all the time to identify where the work is going well, and also to identify campuses that we can connect with other campuses because there is an opportunity to create synergies. This is also where we know what work we need to support. So this is our opportunity for you to promote to us the work that is of the highest priority and the highest impact to the system office, and to have that promoted both to the governor's office as well as across your institutions. These reports are indeed read in the system office, and they are used in the system office. And so I want to make sure that we're clear that this is our best and first piece of documentation we use when we begin to talk with other campuses about where we think the work can be done that to face the challenges they're struggling with. This is also how we address outside funders. It's a way we can demonstrate to our outside partners of the work that we have underway on campus. And it really is also your way of demonstrating the best work that you have on your campuses. For you, we hope this is an opportunity for you to really look at the work you do, to have a point in time where you stop, pause, and reflect upon the work that you're doing in order to see if this aligns with who you think you are, where you think you want to go, and what you think you want to do. It is also, frankly, your vehicle for showing off your work internally. There are a great number of internal audiences that this can be helpful with. It allows you to align and to demonstrate the degree to which your student success strategies can be made coherent. But it's also a way to market us across across your campus and with your students to say, we think this is a way we will help your students succeed. We hope these have high value and high utility on your campus and elsewhere. And I'm always pleased to see when I see these reports have been posted to a campus website and promoted in that way, because that tells me that you do use them. And again, one of the aspects of this process is at the end of the whole thing, we do ask you, how can we make this structure better? And many of the changes that we make every year are based upon some of that feedback. So I think I noted this, but does anyone actually use these things? Well, yeah, again, I said this, we use this to set our priorities. It is our way that we help to respond to policymaker inquiries we get during legislative session. Substantial number of inquiries from the legislature about not just the numbers, but also the what is going on. And it's very helpful to be able to pull from the campus plans areas where campuses are actually engaging in important work. They can help guide work on other campuses. I know this is ways that we have done in the past, shaped out strategies and policies that have been used to more broadly scale the work. And it's really, really important for us to be able to know who's doing what when we start to look for exemplars. The best example I can point to this is actually at the Momentum Summit last February and March. When we went to look for, when we had our first summit, we went outside the state to look for experts. When we came to the summit too, we realized that all the experts we needed to draw upon were largely in the state. The updates was our first point first place we went to go find who was doing what work that we thought was important to highlight for our other campuses. And so this is really a useful tool to advance and accelerate the work we do in the system, and to really make the most use of the fact that we are a system and not 26 lightly affiliated institutions. And finally, and I think this is important, this is a report to the governor's office. The governor's office for the last 6 years has received these with a varying degree of excitement, but they have always indicated that they are very useful and that this is a high utility document for them. And I think this is going to continue to be the case. So, having said that, these reports have utility, they have value to us, and they also are a substantially important part of the public record that we create about the work we're doing to serve the state's students. So the process. So the process this year is largely unchanged from years past. The campus plan has two parts. There's a strategy survey. I mentioned that. It's completed online. It is available at that website you see, completega.org/survey2019. It'll be available next week. We are still refining some of the elements. I want to point out what the strategy survey really tells us. The strategy survey tells us what you are doing very broadly. We are hoping to use this as the backstop so that when you go through the second part of this, the narrative report, you're able to focus on those strategies that are the highest impact and highest priority for your campus. We recognize that there is an enormous amount of work going on campus. The strategy survey is where we hope to capture that work. This is intended to provide you with an opportunity to indicate the areas where you're engaged, in some sense, the ways in which you engage that work. And it is a tool by which we can see the broad scope of the work you do. It is also helpful in that it does take some of the pressure off when you're writing your narrative report, that you don't have to report on everything you do, but again, you can do those high impact, high priority activities that you do that you feel you have the greatest amount to say on the subject. The narrative report is the sort of thing I think most people think of when they think of the updates. They're the longest section, they're the largest part of this. They are This year there are 5 sections. Last year we had 3, and we realized that you can follow this format. I will say that there are campuses where following that format has been difficult, and they will go somewhat off the rails or off the guidance on that, and that is fine so long as you sort of accomplish the central goals of this. We want you to state your institutional mission and student body profile. We want to get an idea of your we're going to have an idea of the momentum you're updating. Again, this is aligned with the work you're doing on you'll be asked to do for the budget hearing. We want to look at the non-momentum, if it's not in a momentum your update, the non-momentum high-impact practices and high-impact strategies, activities that you're working on. And then these 2 sections, which have been, this section which has been consistent, the observations and next step, what have you learned, where are you changing things. Finally, this final section of student success and completion team. We want to know who's doing this work, who you have doing this work on your campus. So, digging a little deeper, give you a sense of the timeline. April 25th, the update instructions went out. We're having this webinar today. There we are. Next week on the 14th, the strategy survey should be available to you. June 26th, if a campus wants to have a draft review of their plans, we welcome you to do it. That will be on the 26th. That was also the date that we'll be sending out data from the CCG data set to y'all. That actually may end up happening earlier this year. I've just been alerted that that data is actually maybe ready, will be ready on the early side. July 19th, we're going to say the strategy survey will close, and the optional reviews will be back to you if you've sent them in. October 18th is the final update report is due, and we will submit those to the governor's office after we've had our internal review on the 2nd of December. The calendar, again, as I think most of you have learned over the years, if these deadlines pose problems for you, you should reach out directly to me to indicate that, because the most important part of this is that this be work that you feel comfortable representing publicly to the governor's office and on our CCG website. So, talk about the strategy survey. It is revised from 2018. It's going to seek details on activities. It's going to eliminate some questions. It will group the questions around activity areas. And every year we refine this a bit more based on what we've learned. This is not and I should say this is more globally, but this specifically is not an accountability document. The strategy survey is not a check that you have done all the things that we've asked you to do. It is a check on what we know, what you are doing, so that we can get a good handle on the depth and breadth of the activities that are underway on student strategy across the system. Indeed, we would be very surprised if any institution is actively engaged in all of the functions that are on the strategy survey. Because of the way it's structured, you may have multiple individuals have to complete this. You may have individuals who are working on learning support who are unaware of what's happening in your transition programming. And that is intentional that way. You may want to ship this off to multiple people. You will have an institutional login. So your institutional login, this is, again, similar to years past, that allows you to save it as a draft, and then somebody else can pick up that login. That login can be shared across multiple users. It's just simply the easiest, cleanest way to do that without having everybody in the system have to have a login to the CCG website. I will, after this webinar, I will happily send out those logins. I have a list from last year that are who I believe are the institutional individuals responsible for the survey. If I have not heard from campuses by May 14th, I will send those login information out to the individual I currently have on record, unless I know that person has left the system. We're asking you to complete it by July 19th. There should be plenty of time. We do use this information over the summer, actually, to look at sort of depth of programming. So we would love to have it done before we come into the next academic year. Look for the link to go live next week, again on May 14th. The strategy survey, again, it's got a little bit of, I want to go through this because it's new to everybody every year. There's a preview of it that will be not at 2018 but 2019 survey preview, but it will be, there's the survey itself at Survey 2019. The login information, again, can be shared across multiple respondents. It has to have an email attached to it, and an email was sent out asking for your primary CCG point of contact. last week, if I have not heard from you, I've heard from a few of you. If I have not heard from you and you feel it's the same person as last year, I will simply send that email out with the login information on the 14th when the survey goes live. So the survey, again, similar to last year, you'll log in through that completega.org/user page. That information will be in the email that goes out. You will have to put in a username, a password, and then there is a math question that is a CAPTCHA. And that is just that is simply a security procedure on the CTE website. We have a tremendous number of login attempts from Ukraine, North Korea, and Eastern Europe. So it's just nice to make sure that if you're trying to log in, you have to be actually a human being. When you get into that, you can see on the right-hand side of the screen, this is sort of what it will look like. Most of these will be binary questions, but there will be opportunities for you to either select options and also provide us with more information. The questions are grouped. They're grouped by area and function. You should actually, when you log in, you should go directly to your institutional survey. And that's actually the other advantage, is you do not have to sort of worry about finding it after you get in. Once you log in as a strategy survey editor, which is how you'll log in, you'll go right to that survey. But don't panic. So if there's any questions or concerns about the survey, if you're worried about it, or if you get in at any point and have a struggle, you can always email me. I am your single point of contact. You don't have to open a ticket with it. And again, the survey, this happens quite frequently, where I have to either reset a password or unlock somebody for multiple bad passwords. Happy to do it. Doesn't take very long, and I'm generally available when you would be filling out that survey. So moving on, the second part of this work is this narrative report. The narrative report is where you tell us what you've done and how it's done, and that's for it says 2017-18 here. It's for the 2018-2019 year. So this is for the year that we are just finishing up now. There's no template. It's largely the same as last year. There are no limits on strategies. We are asking for 10-page limits. A few people have asked me, can I go over? And usually my response, and I'll say this to everybody here, is that yes, indeed, you can go over. So long as, if we're getting to the 12 pages, we're good. If we're getting to the 20 pages, I think we may need to have a conversation. But one of the values of this is this report is intended to be something that demonstrates your best work and you want to present your best work in it. So there are 5 sections in this year's report. The first section is familiar to everyone. It's not changed since the first year we've done that. Institutional mission and student body profile. It's not a comprehensive review of your data and mission. We want a targeted discussion telling us who you are, why you're focused on the work that you're focusing on, and connect the data, connect data tables if you have them to work you'll discuss later. So if you're going to include data in your mission and student body profile, it should connect to the work you're doing. What this is really important to do, though, one of the reasons why we see is that not everybody should be doing all this work, but all the work you do should connect to who you are as an institution and who you see what you see your mission being. So that section should be fairly familiar. We'd like to see sort of trends and activities in that. Again, if you really do want to put a lot more data in this, you do have an opportunity to put in appendices. About half of our institutions include data appendices. We're happy to see those. We often, if you're going to use those, again, I would note that you want to report them back into the main body of the report. The second section is the Momentum Year update. Last year was the last section. We just are moving this up because, again, of the way that this work is structured. Momentum Year work is work that's first on most people's minds. We want to get this up to the front. So you'll see, we just want to see the major actions you've undertaken. Most of you have finished your Momentum Year plans. Many of you have already implemented, will indicate that by fall 2019, all this work will be done. But we'd like to see now, what does that look like on your campus? The specific question we're asking, and this is the specific question that we'll ask that gets related back to the budget hearing, is this about the strategy of supporting students making a purposeful choice. This is a really interesting conversation for campuses to be involved in. We are not dictating or outlining how campuses support students making a purposeful choice. We're just asking them that they do this. But in having said that, There are certainly best practices that are emerging, and we were interested in seeing that in some detail. That question will reappear when your campuses are brought forward for the budget hearings. So it's important that you can use the same material twice. There'll be a slightly different element to that as well in the budget hearings because, of course, they're interested in the fiscal and financial aspects of this. But what we're looking at is the strategy taken to support those students. So include that in your Momentum Year update and also any early results to date should you have them. Again, we're not expecting everyone to have much in the way of early results, but some of you may. That would be the case for those elements you've put into place already. The Momentum Year update will likely take away some of the elements that y'all have traditionally reported in this institutional high impact strategy section. So those of you working on co-requisite learning support, if you're going to continue to report on that, and again, for the most part, that is, we feel, a mature strategy. It may not be necessary to be in the report, but if you are, it would probably be in the previous section because it is really a part of the Momentum Year. This is an opportunity for you to report on other high-impact strategies that fall, in your eyes, outside of the Momentum Year. As we'll be discussing and as the Momentum approach moves forward, much of this work will all go under the same umbrella, but we want to give an opportunity to sort of provide consistency on the work that you have done historically over time so that we can see what you're working on, what is important, what have you done, what progress have you made, and what have you learned. Each one of these should be its own element. We'd like to see them separated out. You do not need to follow a tabular format. A couple campuses really enjoy that, really like that, and I'm fine with that. But if you want to write this as a narrative, as a section, just make sure you're covering those five questions in your reports. The observations and next steps, which is the fourth section, it's fairly brief. It's usually just a few paragraphs, but we really like to know what's working and what's not, what changes you want to make in your plans, and sort of the why of this. This is a really useful opportunity for you to provide feedback on the experimentation that you feel you are doing and how you're resourcing and how you're understanding the work that you're doing. We'd like this to be across the full scope of your work. That is to say that the work that both the Momentum work and the Momentum Year work, that work that's focused around first-year students, and then the broad work that may focus on students across all parts of their life cycle. But again, this is not intended to be a gotcha or a catch. Be very honest and frank. And again, we've had some great feedback from institutions about work that just isn't successful on campus and how they're adjusting their work to reflect what they see in their data and how that work is being supported on their campus. And finally, this is new, or it's, I guess, shifted, we'd like to see the members of your success team. Doesn't count against your total pages, so if you have 40 people on your success team, list them all. What I'm really trying to look for is a comprehensive sense of who is working on what on campus. And here's the straightforward reason why. We have found that we are reaching out to the same people again and again and again, and that is perfectly fine from my perspective. I like campuses where I can recall one person and know that I can be pretty much confident that I'm going to get the student success work conversation started. But we're also aware that there's a whole lot of people on campus who do this work who may not be as directly connected to the system and its opportunity to create networks. And as we move this work forward, particularly coming out of the Momentum Summit 2, we really realized that we need to dive deeper onto campuses and help support the idea of creating a network, to use the fact that we are a system and not simply 26 lightly affiliated institutions, to really help develop a network of people engaged in activities on campus around student success. This is, again, fair warning, this is an opportunity that some of these people may start getting a lot of emails from me. This is also an opportunity perhaps for you to start getting fewer emails from me if you give up somebody else's email. But the point really is to establish a sense of a network of who does student success work on campus so that it allows both the system office to work more deeply onto campus, but also allow institutions to network with one another. So that's the sort of purpose of this. Again, the list is not going to count against your total pages because we really want this to be as full a list as you want it to be for the ways you want to direct the communications on your campus. So that's the narrative. So you've gone through this, you've done your strategy survey, you've gone and written this plan, and now you just need to submit it. Submitting it is available. You can submit it for an optional review. It will go through the same channels. I'll say this: it goes through the same channels as the regular report. Submit them by June 26th. I will review them. I will find there will at least be one other System Office reviewer on those plans that come in. We generally provide feedback on the activities, not on the report. If there's elements of the report you want us to look at, like is this sufficient, is this enough, or is this where you want us going, we will certainly provide that information as well. But this is the opportunity you will have to say what is what we would say is here's where we see this work going forward, and here's how we'd like to see some of this work advanced in other areas. But we're also willing to look at this and give a thumbs up, thumbs down on, or more importantly, give our response on whether the report is satisfying the expectations. As most of y'all who have submitted these, for those people who have submitted optional review before, I think they found them helpful. One of the things I think it provides is the sense of confidence that the reporting is coming in. I want to be clear, we do not view the reports as a comprehensive compliance document. This is really, truly a document about gathering information on what you have on campus. So I want to deflate the idea that they need to be they need to sort of tick boxes, and these are really documents that we want to make sure that are not intended as compliance, but much more intended as demonstrating the scope of the work so that we can use that to go forward. But once you've had that review or not, you will submit these through the CCG website. Is the easiest way to do it. It's a Word file. You will get, we need them as Word files, not PDFs, because we do end up having to adjust them so the document that we send to the governor looks consistent across all campuses. Appendices are a separate Word file. I will point out appendix so you know, so just as I maybe should have said this earlier, appendices do not count against your word count either. But you should, if you're including an appendix, refer to whatever's in the appendix. If you're putting in the appendix, it probably should support work that you're putting into the report as a whole, the narrative report. There are Word files submitted online through the Complete College Georgia website at the submit_2019 link. You can also just submit them to the CCG at USG website or email. Either way you do it, we need it by October 8th. They should come from the President's office so that we know that this is the official version. It has generally not been a problem, but we just want to make sure that they come through the President's office. As if that poses a substantial problem, it generally doesn't. They can come through the Provost's office as well. Again, if you either submit it through either venue, you will get confirmation that we have received it. If 3 days have passed and you have not received confirmation, please contact us. It happened last year where somebody submitted it and it went to a dead letter, and we ended up having to chase it down. But again, submit that by October 8th to the system office. If you need help, there are resources on the CCG website, including instructions, the survey and the preview, which will be available next week, narrative overview instructions, submission link, this presentation, and the video will be online soon. You can also always contact me. I am your primary point of contact on this project. At this point, if you have questions, please put them into the chat box. Again, for the most part, I think these are most of y'all have had some experience with this. I'm looking at the list of folks who are online, and I think that for the most part, this is hopefully not different from previous years. If you have questions that come up that you don't want to ask in the chat box, you can always email them to me at a later date. I'm going to give 1 minute for questions to come up. And just go ahead and make sure everyone has my contact information. There's the link for the plans. There's my email address and my phone. My phone, I'm always, as most of y'all know, I am always available by phone. And with that, I think we're here at half an hour, and I'm going to go ahead and say thank you to all of you for your support of student success work in the state of Georgia, and also for your contributions to this effort. This is something that is, again, I've been doing. This is the first project I actually started working on at the system office, really, and it's one of the things I find the most engaging and most enlightening. So I really appreciate all the work y'all do to make this such a success. Thank you very much, and we'll be in touch.